Today is the day. Sonic Racing Crossworlds is now out on Nintendo Switch 2 and other inferior platforms. And as usual, Sonic fanboys are running their mouths. They're doing that thing they always do where, like, this time Sonic will destroy Mario. Like, you have people like posting pictures of RVs. They're like hyping up a remake of a 90s commercial. It's like one of the saddest things I've ever seen in my life. Because if you remember, if you're like an old boomer like me, like you had to deal with this back in 2014 when Mario Kart 8 came out, because the narrative back then was the same. That Sonic Racing Transformed was way better than Mario Kart, and that nothing Nintendo could do could compete with Sonic. And of course, that didn't happen. Mario Kart 8 became one of the most successful games ever made, and Sonic Racing Transformed is completely forgotten. But there was this huge push online to kind of cope and seed Sonic Racing into relevancy. And that's exactly what we're seeing with Crossworlds, because nothing about the actual game looks good. Like, nobody looks at Sonic in a car and comes away thinking it's some monumental like contribution to gaming. Like, Sonic Racing does nothing to compete with Mario Kart. It does not have better mechanics. It does not have better features. The racing is not as good. Like, why exactly would anybody ever choose Sonic over Mario? And the insane mindset that people have, this idea that Sonic Racing is like some like it's going to be its big moment to shine, that clearly is not going to happen. It's very possible that Mario Kart World sold more on day one than Sonic Racing Cross Worlds will do its entire life cycle. And that's not really an exaggeration. People really underestimate just how successful Mario Kart World actually is. The people crying and complaining about it on online are a very vocal minority. You are completely delusional if you genuinely believe that Mario Kart World is not a huge success story. That is something we really do need to rectify going forward. You are wrong if you say that the online is dead or that nobody's talking about the game anymore, because that obviously isn't true. Like, just look at how much excitement there was over the game getting patched today. Mario Kart World has all this stuff going for it, and yet the community is just bending over backwards, doing everything it can to downplay the experience, whether it's complaining about intermissions or complaining about like the structure of the game or the free roam mode. Like, all of it is just a gigantic cope to distract from the fact that Mario Kart World is a monumental success. That is something that we really need to talk about going forward, is that this game has been downplayed for months, and none of the complaints, the whining, or the issues people have had with this game have held any water whatsoever. In fact, every couple of weeks, it feels like they have to come up with a new cope. I just saw RGT85 like the other day say, like, oh, Nintendo has forgotten about Mario Kart World. And what happens? Update. So it's just, the narrative is completely at odds with reality. Like, not only with downplaying Mario Kart World, but also in overhyping Crossworlds, because there is not a chance in hell that Crossworlds will be competitive with Mario Kart World in any way, shape, or form, right? It just isn't going to happen. Sonic is a inferior IP. It's not that popular. Essentially, its core audience are basically just people obsessed with 90s culture, people who grew up in that period and just have this obsessive desire to kind of legitimize like their favorite 90s mascot character. It's disgusting. And it really needs to be called out more, because I've been very vocal ever since Sonic Frontiers came out that Sonic has not only not been good these past 30 years, like, not only has he never been good, but throughout that entire span of time, you've consistently had these fanboys come out and declare Sonic is back. that he's going to beat Mario this time, and it just never happens. It's like if you've seen the Yu Yu Hakusho, right, where like Kuwabara is always like fighting with Yusuke, and he always loses. Like it's kind of like that. Like Mario wins every single time. Like they come together, and it's just like he even headlined the Olympic Game series. Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. Like you can't take a bigger L than that. Like you cannot take a bigger L than that. But the community desperately wants to do its best to kind of relentlessly downplay everything that like Mario Kart stands for. Like, does anybody seriously believe that Mario Kart World is not doing well right now? You can see that it's consistently a bestseller on the eShop. You can see that it's still active online. The common copes that people have that this thing like wasn't popular is just a complete farce. Like, when are we going to like start acknowledging this? Like, when are we going to start like facing the facts and acknowledging that Mario Kart World was successful and that Crossworlds will be less so? You know, I am absolutely, completely exhausted of Sonic fanboys hyping up the newest slop on their with featuring their favorite blue rat. Like I'm so sick of people acting as if they got it right this time and that Sonic's gonna make a comeback and he's gonna embarrass Mario. Like that just is never going to happen. And honestly, like at this point, like I think Nintendo fans have an obligation to start lashing out at these people whenever they start running their mouths about this kind of thing, because this is not the first time we've had to deal with this. Like this is not the first time we've had to deal with people hyping up Sonic Racing. Like it didn't do well back 10 years ago, so why would it do well now? Not only will it not do as well as Mario Kart World, I think it's not even going to do as well as Kirby Air Riders. I think it may not do as well as the F-Zero game that's coming out soon. Like I think there's a very good chance that Nintendo is going to stop like this title like 3 times over. And not only that, this game is launching on Switch 2 anyway. So even if people buy Sonic Racing on Switch, it's just going to result in more money in Nintendo's pocket. This entire situation was embarrassing, not only for Sega for kindling like a decades long rivalry that they lost before it even started, but with the fans who have spent like the past 30 years delusionally like trying to keep Sonic relevant. At this point, Mario's bigger, Donkey Kong's bigger, Kirby is bigger than Sonic now. Like, you're really going to try and tell me that Sonic is a character that can compete with Mario when something like Kirby is like bigger than it is now. Like it's just appalling. It really needs to be called out for what it is. And I don't know exactly what Nintendo fans are going to have to do to put a stop to it, because this has been a prevalent problem in the community for years. Like every single time a Sonic game gets announced, we have to deal with people saying that it's going to be way better than the Mario one. I remember that happening with Sonic Lost World. When that was first shown off against Super Mario 3D World, like everyone agreed that Sonic Lost World looked way better. And what happens? 3D World becomes a huge success. It becomes game of the year for a lot of people. And Lost World is just something that didn't even like, wasn't even all that relevant. Lost World for a lot of people is considered a lackluster Sonic game. Like I actually rather like it, but for the most part, like most people don't look back on that game fondly. So, what does this mean? What does that mean for the brand? What does that mean? Like, Sonic fans need to grow up. Okay, they need to get it outside this like us versus them mentality and actually start like being excited for Sonic on its own merits. So instead of like spending all the time hyping up Crossworlds for like being better than Mario Kart World, like why not actually talk about Crossworlds as a game? Its actual mechanics, its character roster, like the things it's going to do differently than Mario Kart. Like, don't spend all of your time trying to gaslight people into thinking that Sonic Crossworlds ever had a shot of competing with Mario Kart World. Not only is that not true, you have spent the past 30 years doing the same with every Sonic game, with every Mario release. Enough is enough. You've lost. Sonic is a C-list franchise that is a relic of the 90s. Maybe you could find someone who would be excited by Sonic if you got into a time machine and showed them a title from 30 years in the future. Other than that, you are never going to get people fired up about this blue rat ever again.